Apparently we drove the PEOs off. They've run off. Collins and White have never been shy of anything, and they're not back. So we'll start. Let's start with an kind of a get the ball rolling question. Everybody here has been saying, look, what we need is open and honest communication. Boy, that sounds like a great idea. If I've got really capable systems that none of my competitors have, I think open and honest communication is a great idea. Don't you? I mean, how do we fight off this? How do we balance the issue of need for communication with protecting company interest and company, competitive advantage? And first one to the mic wins, all right? All right, Chris has got it.
So a couple of thoughts on that as far as I'll start with maybe some solutions to characterize the environment. What I found, first of all, we have to perform. So if I'm performing better on my contracts, and some of the PEOs mentioned that, it's a lot easier to have open conversations. And given our portfolio, frankly, probably through the people, I have some programs that are performing really well. I've got a really good relationship with the customer, and some do not. So what I told our folks is the number one thing you can do to improve conversation is to perform on the existing work that you have, and that was mentioned by a couple of the PEOs. Having conversations earlier before we get to, say, a negotiation stage is important. Doing some research, we talk about technology in collaboration with the PEOs and the government along the way so they can understand it. Having the discussions about competitiveness so it doesn't come to a head, I think is important. And a couple of things that I've found have been useful is we've hired folks that work in the government. And even though we think we understand you because you're a number one customer and we engage with you, they have a lot of insight that proves useful for us. Similarly, we've had folks in government have come to actually attended our leadership courses, attended our finance courses, have been embedded in the business, and they will say the same thing. Now I understand and I appreciate some of the motivations. So one of the recommendations that I'd like to propose here is maybe we start doing more exchange of people. I find if we can do a bit more of that, we have a better understanding of each other if you embed them. Right? So we've sent folks that have worked in labs with the government, we've had folks working in industry. So.
Paul, you've been both sides of the line here. What do you think about all this?
So very, very much agree. We talk about fair open conversation. And by the way, so Paul Wells just shy of 3 decades in the Air Force, and I've been out for about 2 years. Actually the lead cyber BD guy. But just representing the company here at this great forum. But when we talk about fair open conversation, I think we go back to a theme that's come up a couple of times, which is what is the combat mission need that we're talking about? Often, especially in this particular community, the open conversation starts when we talk about particular procurement or particular acquisition or particular sustainment activity, and now you're very much into, this is a real program with real revenue and real requirements, where if we roll it back, what is the combat mission need that we're all trying to satisfy? From the warfighter to the requirements owner, to procurement expertise and professional, to the industry partner. And what is it that all of us can bring to that dialogue to help articulate and explain and describe the state of the world, not necessarily the state of the art, although they're play that too, but this is what options exist to help get after the composable solutions and those that we often provide to that mission need, to help understand this is what industry can bring to that dialogue. And we're not necessarily compromising that team, we're talking as a team, as a industry partners, on this is really what we can do that maybe spur some ideas from the government side on here's a better way to ask for that, or here's a better way to articulate that, or here's a better way to describe that, or my program is focused here on this particular element of mission need, but through this dialogue, I need to talk to Joe in his program, and Sally in her program, and Dave in their program, and we need to talk together about how we go before acquisition.
Did you say composable solutions or compostable solutions?
I said
Okay, yeah, proposable. Okay, all right, there we go. All right, maybe I didn't hear well. All right, Just say, all right, it's okay. Mark's in.
Obviously, driving towards capability, and one of the great things that we have here is a competitive environment. A competitive environment, to be honest with you, it spurs great solutions, unique solutions that gives the government options, choices on the best way, the most economic way, and to be honest with you, ways to keep our enemies at bay, right?
Very much.
They don't know how it's done. Now, we in industry want to understand, as our solutions are being developed, what that feedback looks like. Does that sound right? What are you hearing? What are the things that make sense now? What we don't want in a competitive environment is that to be shared with our competition, right? I mean, that's not something that you want, right? Because in the end, we want to be your long-time provider of bank mission X, Y, or Z, right? We'd like to have, but we know dialogue helps in terms of getting there, right? That's a good thing to do and have that open and honest conversation. But we all realize that we're in a competitive environment. And competitive environment means that we don't necessarily want Northrop or Lockheed or Raytheon or you name it to know exactly how we're approaching a problem.
So Mark, I'm going to challenge you a little, but I may let GE and Lockheed answer for you. It's like, look, protecting your information is part of our responsibility. It would be easier to protect if you didn't mark every single chart proprietary. You could have a picture of an iPhone, it would be marked Boeing, Lockheed, Northrop, whatever, proprietary. I know there's some kind of policy there, but how can you guys help us protect what's really important for your competitive advantage? And we'll go to Dana here from Lockheed, and then we'll come to Stephen in a second. Yeah, see, they're all like, yeah, you caught us, that's right. It's like, the way the tint that you put on the image, it's a Raytheon proprietary, right? I got it. Okay. Pull it a little closer, I think. A little closer. Okay. There.
But I would say in my period of time in the industry, I haven't necessarily seen my own company, Lockheed Martin, quite honestly, or any of the fine companies here be very bashful about talking about the capabilities in the press or talking about the capabilities at conferences such as these. And really, it's where the rubber meets the road in terms of what is the critical data, what is the critical solutions that you're trying to bring to the government, and where do you want to be careful about that. I think, like a number of the panelists have said, that open and honest communication about this is the solution set, and from a broad perspective, okay sharing kind of this piece of data, but I'm not okay sharing this other piece of data. It's a fine and open conversation to be had. So I think the default is I've marked everything proprietary to Lockheed.
Yeah, I say you guys. I understand how it works. All right.
The pushback, I think, is an easy conversation to say, okay, how much of this is actually proprietary and how much is not. The second is we take an internal look at our policies and procedures, just in the same way that the U.S. Air Force would do this and say, okay, what if this is causing waste? What if this is causing additional cost in terms of that back and forth? And I think at Lockheed Martin, we'd be more than willing to have that conversation about how much additional cost we're putting in the system just by the simple way that we walk around.
All right. Okay. Stephen, what do you think? So you're crowd favorite already. Crowd favorite already. There we go.
But I will say, we really went through it, like, the focus always been in the government market, proprietary. I think we're diving into that more now because we've got a lot of discussions with our legal team about only market proprietary, proprietary. So I think that message is coming through. But I will also say that everybody's been in the industry for so long that we're trained them at default. Be safe market. So I think we're away from that. Back to the conversation about sharing. From our perspective, part of
better, yeah. Okay, fair enough. Well, I have lots more questions based on my previous panel's brilliant insights, but they may have some questions of their own or somebody else in the crowd, so I'll pause and see, and it looks like General Genetempo has found the microphone.
So when you were talking about the exchange, what level of personnel are you talking about within the organizations in an exchange format? Because we do an education with industry, right, where we send some folks out, but that's at a lower level. Are you talking something different than that?
Yeah, maybe mid-level. So we've had some exchanges where folks would be equivalent to a director for us, which is 06, right? 06, 07, that. So they're in the middle, so not entry level, not low, but not, senior flag level. So high enough to have an impact more broadly than just themselves and their small team. But high enough, but not at the flag officer level. So, go ahead, sorry.
And also, when you're working on what does that change look like for the education industry in terms of 2 or 3 year kind of activity or activity, and then you have the other model, let's say at Eisenhower, where you had a small industry representatives that are going through Eisenhower. So is there something kind of between that formal development education model that is a 3-month program or a 6-month program where it's immersive, it's embedded, but it's not maybe quite the time commitment on either the industry director side or the
Yeah. All right. See, I saw, who's next? All right, right here.
There we go. Bill Hack with the Universal Technology Corporation here local in Dayton, Ohio. So, gentlemen, how have you been working on breaking down some of the barriers between programs so that you can get your lessons learned across your platform, specifically like in the 5th generation arena?
Yeah, I'll take that. One thing that we do with the program, I'm surprised that I've partnered so don't do the same thing, is we have certain kind of abilities, right? So you have engineering functions, engineering core, you have corporate management core, you have finance core, and what they do is you come up into that core is you're driving lessons learned across all the platforms, whether it's new development, whether it's sustainment. Here's the things that worked, here's the things that haven't worked. Think about schedule, cost, performance, and what are the things, what are the techniques that have been used that are best of the company, right? And you say, all right, this is what we learned in program X, Y, or Z, and here's now how we're going to essentially attack these issues, right? In terms of managing schedule, managing costs, or the like, right? So we try to get those best practices identified and then really permeated throughout the organization. One of the challenges that we have is, I came from a small company, now I'm a slightly larger company.
Slightly.
So it's sometimes, to be honest with you, you don't know what you don't know, right? So parts of the building might know something that the other parts just don't know yet. And trying to integrate that across, there's a lot of calories spent just making sure that we actually do that seamlessly.
So I'm going to add into this, but I don't want to stop, Dana, but that you could interpret his question also is from a security perspective. No one wants to be not secure, right? We want to protect information that we need to have that's classified, but our system might also inhibit proper sharing across programs. Is there anything that the government needs to do to think about that differently as well? So, but Dana, go ahead.
I'll take the initial question for the admin. We're fond of saying inside Lockheed Martin, 1,000 employees, and so whatever problem it is that you're facing, somebody else has faced that problem. And it's like the other part as well. It's a big corporation, it's been in business for 100 years. We've witnessed the program successes, we've witnessed the program failures, and so if there's a struggle within your program, there's likely somebody inside the corporation that has experienced something similar that you can
Okay,
Just gonna
Chris.
add, one of the things we're doing, the Air Force does a good job. We're moving a lot of people around, right? It's good. We've done everything that Mark and Dana talked about. We're actually moving some folks around. In answer to your question of what the government can do, there's been various initiatives to have people in industry, at least some handful, have some kind of Uber clearance,
Yeah.
right? So they can be across all of the restricted programs. That seems to kind of come and go as far as, if it's more of an OSD thing. So if you're asking for what would be helpful,
Yeah.
if we could get some 20 people, 15,
Yeah.
that have, because we're worried about even technology development and combining capabilities. So if there's an ask, maybe in the right.
Right. Okay. Paul?
So in addition to that, obviously the nature of the business is great now, it's working with a lot of advanced technologies that are across a lot of combat platforms. And I will admit that on occasion we have had a requirement come in from the government customer that is very much aligned with another requirement from another government customer. And the capability solution would be almost 99% developed if we could get to government programs to share very sensitive
Right.
service acquisition program with each other. And in most cases, we get to the right answer. But in some cases, for whatever reason, we don't.
Can't do it.
So kind of whether it's the Uber access, whether it's just having the right conversation at the right level, just that when an industry partner comes to you and says, if you're willing to share this particular sensitivity with this other customer, then we can bring better value to the government.
Okay. Thanks, Paul. All right. Looking out there. Up, Mr. Dunn.
Hey, good morning. I'm Jim Dunn from Air Force Requirements. Given that I have a requirement here, which is to connect everything so that they can share everything and learn everything, there are a number of ways we could proceed down the path of achieving that goal. One of them is for us and the government in the Air Force to try to define that common standard. But what I'm much more interested in is getting UANs together to develop within a consortium what you in the industry think is the path that has the greatest success for us. So how do I encourage and enable you to do that?
Yeah, I'll start. I've seen models where consortiums work well, right? If we have, you got the invitees of who you think are the major influencers. There's always going to be a challenge there because somebody's left out of the party, right? And they think they should be in the party to develop a consortium. I think that defining a common objective of what we're trying to get done and making sure that that's understood, is definitely something that could happen. One thing I always think it's interesting that I know, and I think everybody in this room knows, that in time of extreme crisis or threat, we're all going to come together very quickly. Like there's going to be, one approach from an industry perspective to ensure that the challenge is making sure we can do that a priori. So we have the best capability before the boom goes up. Right? That's what we're trying to do. So I think that common objectives, identifying those people that have the right influence, those industries with the logic on why, company A, B, or C is in there is a way to move forward with that.
All right.
Yeah, I agree with Mark. What would be critical is defining at least a bit of the end state and compelling need, right, for the consortium to exist. So it's not because it's convenient or not because it will be better, but because we will not be able to address the threat in the future if we do not. And we talked about with the AFPEO panel here, defining the mission outcome as a starting point is going to be critical. This is different than defining a standard interface for computers 20 years ago so I can swap out the hard drive. Right, so that eventually happened with the swap out the SIMs and the video card. This is a compelling need, and therefore we'll not be able to defeat the threat without. I think you have to start with a mission and then an objective. Then you can. I think if you did those two, we would be on board again, Mark. So you have to get the right people. Dana?
I just want to add a caution as well that I have to just made a consortium just want to be mindful of the balance required and associated with competitive innovation. Well, we ultimately want the best possible solution. And sometimes when you bring a consortium into the mix, you end up narrowing down the creative response, the innovative response you're looking for. So I think we just want to be mindful when you're having that consortium where you go.
Good point.
One final that is, make sure that we're willing to find something unique where we absolutely have to. The objective is maybe to expose data that is a common standard so that we can provide the right analytics. There's a lot of different standards there. And so having an industry portion looking at what does that look like in a daily context, maybe 90% of the answers over there. And so go start from the consortium, okay, here's the objective, the technology objective, as well as the mission objective. The whole point behind this is to close that mission. I think we all get into the room and start talking about trying to find some massive standard, like the data disclosure standard, that will run the whole conversation with us.
All right. I think General Collins might have a question.
All right. So, gentlemen, as I talked about speed and agility, and we can only go as fast as our slowest process, would like your opinions on the government side. What do you see in your experience being the slowest part of the process to get anything started? And any recommendations on what to do about it? But on the flip side as well, within your company corporate processes, where do you think your slowest processes are, and is there anything being done to get after them?
Tough question, right? But in many regards, I think that this topic has been covered a couple of times, and so I'll put stop it a little bit, quite honestly. I'll leave my chief engineers in the room. Some of the folks have got down a little bit. But James heard this story before, so the area that is the most opportunity from a cost reduction and quite honestly schedule reduction perspective is in test qualification. Process. So what's good enough from an acceptance procedure perspective? What's good enough from a testing procedure perspective? And I've got young children still, so I read a book called If You Give a Mouse a Cookie. And so I don't know if you've read that book or not, but if you haven't, it's a
great book.
But you know, it's kind of something like this. If you give a mouse a cookie, he's going to want a glass of milk. And if you give him a glass of milk, so what I have some serious conversations with my chief engineer about is, you know, if I give a flight test engineer a strain gauge, he's going to want a second strain gauge. And you know, if I give him two, why not four? And so the conversation really is about that balance between how much risk you're willing to take during a flight test or during a missile test. I think I described yesterday with 1 shot versus 20 shots. It's really, at what point, given the solution that you're trying to come up with, the maturity of that platform, the brand new test article, how do you tailor those flight test requirements? How do you tailor those acceptance test procedures to just what's necessary in order to shorten the schedule and decrease the cost associated with getting that qualification in place?
All right. Stephen?
So far, again, this is standard back from my perspective, it's related. So it's part of us, it's our proposal process. And then it's the government's analysis of what proposal and negotiation process. So what are we doing about it? One of the things we're doing right now is working on managing this proposal process. So that we don't, right now we spend months and months just gathering data, sending out thousands of pages of data, which
Okay, so here I'll throw out a T-ball while we're figuring out. So I guess that's really not right. You don't really throw out a T-ball, but it's a government process. All right. So we heard a couple of things. We talked about it. One is that we create conditions where you win or you lose, genuinely lose. We heard that discussion, and then we also heard, maybe from me, about the discussion about, yeah, well, is it the RFP or the proposal that really sucks here? You know, so what's the bad part that's going on? How do we improve quality? And is there anything that can be done to shift it from such a dire win-lose condition? Those put a lot of running room in there.
So in answer to your second question, how do you make it? I don't know. Right? So you buy a new trainer every 50 years, 40, new bomber every act, a new cargo. So essentially, if you don't win, you're kind of out of that business, if not forever, for essentially a generation. You're done. Right? So I don't have a solution to how you would somehow change that dynamic. In the past, the platforms, they were introduced, so you didn't win. You've got 2 or 3 years, maybe 4, you can be back. So you can maintain that workforce, you can maintain engineering, you can maintain skills, you can be back in the game. So part of my business is services, so it's different than the platform side. If you bid, win or lose, 3 years you're back.
So Chris, it sounds like you'd be a fan, if we can figure out how to make it work, of Dr. Roper's Century Series, kind of reintroducing it.
In that range so that it's not do or die, because that gets behaviors and protests and other things. For the smaller systems, there's an opportunity, or if there's an environment that there's constant upgrades or product improvements, then at least you would have an opportunity to be part of the record system, even if you didn't win.
Right, okay.
So I'll stop there and let some other people.
Yeah, I'll just go your first question, right? How do we, the dialogue part up front on RFP helps a lot, right, for clarification. That has been, in my opinion, a big improvement that's happened. The more dialogue there is, the more clarity, you know what you're asking for, we deliver what you're asking for, so that helps a ton, and we need to continue that, not dial back on that dialogue for RFP. I think the whole thing of, one competition, I think that we recognize, and that's why it can be it's material for these companies, for us as companies, right? If you have these large procurements and you know that it's generational, Dan and I are going to be fighting an Army competition for fusion tactical concepts. When's the last time the Army has gone after a new helicopter platform? GBSD, right? That's another one, right? So those are huge things for the companies, and if you aren't in it and you don't win that, then you're effectively out. And I think that there's ways to look at doing that differently, commercial models and stuff like that. But in the end, obviously for these weapon systems, there's one customer, that's the DoD, and therefore what we're driving to in terms of support.
Just to add, so once the competition's over, somebody's won, there's still this win-loss mentality. It doesn't permeate, kind of every contract person, every program person, and subject matter expert. Colonel White, during the PEO panel, mentioned this in terms of your ability to communicate and have this whole discussion about, okay, we want a contract, we negotiated a contract, we signed it. I've certainly experienced this. Now that we've signed this, what does it actually mean? What actually constitutes success for the service, and what actually constitutes success for the contractor at that point? And quite often, and I think you alluded to this, quite often, sometimes you have to put the weapons down and just take a step back to what are we trying to accomplish together? How do we do this? How do I ask for something less so I'm not having to spend money on something that I don't need anyway? And you can focus
All right.
So, beyond the competition, I think, take care of that win-loss mentality during the execution of the contract as well as during the war.
All right. The PEOs have been suspiciously quiet. There's Colonel White.
All right. So in light of all the discussion we've had here today, as I look back on all the programs I've worked on, I can tell you the harder the program, it seemed like the better the communication and the closer the government was with industry. Because we all knew the risk and we all knew the challenge of what we're getting into. And I'm talking post-contract award. There's a winter, now we got to go do this thing, exactly to your point, Dana. But based on every day, once we, specifically with the legacy platforms, and General Collins and I talk about this often, specifically with industry, it seems like we're growing further apart, specifically with how we communicate with each other. And I'll give you examples because I don't want to be overly general. IP. We all pretend that it's something we'll work through, but the reality is I would submit to you that those charts that say proprietary are the beginning of your stance or where your company stands with respect to IP. Our stance is we will always ask for GPR. That's where we're going to start, right? So it's that standoff and the cloud is in the middle. UCAs, everybody's favorite topic. There are many industry partners that are shying away from those. They're shying away from the UCA because they feel like it's not getting definitized fast enough, regardless of whose fault it is, and it has an impact on the bottom line of profit. I don't think anybody will dispute with that.
So what's the question?
So as we continue to go down this path, what, in your opinion, is the most challenging obstacle in communicating with the government? What is it that causes these issues, or is the foundational issue that does not allow you to be, I don't want to say open and honest, but doesn't allow you to be as open as you would like to be? What is that obstacle, and what can we do better to help address that?
So I agree with everything you said. What I'd say in my experience is it's not industry-wide. Even in my business, it's very program-specific. Where I have examples where communication is really good and communication where it's not. And I'll say a couple of areas I'll focus on where it's not. There's either the performance challenges on our part, right? So we've been part of the cause of it, so there's not trust in the fact that we can execute on the programs we have today. I always like to start with me, and I've got some of those. There might be uncertainty in the plans for the platform. And so for some of the platforms, let's say you have a program and it's one or two platform programs. And in the news, the program's going to go away, we're going to keep it, we're going to upgrade it, we're not going to upgrade it, we're going to compete this system, we're going to keep that system. Well, it's irrelevant, well, no, it's not. And so the mentality of that specific program office may be a bit more protectionistic, where even I might say, hey, let's have a conversation with the government. They may say, in that specific program or that site, it's kind of win-lose. And so that might impede some of the discussions there. And sometimes it's frankly personality driven. So we've got to the point where I've gone to the customer and said, hey, let's swap out both our teams. Let's move them because the relationship for various reasons, sometimes on the call, has not been very conducive to open collaboration. So what I've done with my team is, I don't disagree with you, really looking at it by program by site in that generality, looking at where we're good with the government, we have good relationship and transparency, and then some we're not, making some personnel changes, and in fact trying to rotate some folks around, and moving some folks that aren't exhibiting behaviors, frankly moving them out of the program. So I think for all of us, broad brush, I don't disagree with you, but I think there's pockets of goodness and there's pockets of not. We've got to get down to the program level. We really got to weed it out, just like we would weed out poor performance or ethics or quality or any of the other challenges that we have.
Steve? I'm sorry, Mark.
Let me just jump on what was said. So completely agree with the relationship part, right? Relationships matter. Relationships help. And I've seen it work well on really tough programs. I've seen it work well on programs that are kind of, on cruise control, right? Because the relationship is there. And I think all of us understand that the relationship that we have with our DoD partners, DoD customers, is a long-standing relationship. Right? This isn't we're just getting program tax done, and that's all I care about. I mean, we
that for everything, but we can do that for this. Let me give you a comparative one, just to help you. If my supply chain person says that they're going to get one of my suppliers on contract and it's going to take them a year to get it done, and we already have a relationship with the supplier, that supply chain person will no longer work. Right? They're done. That's absolutely unacceptable. There's no way that it would take or should take. One of the things that we do on both the commercial side as well as within us, because obviously we have suppliers and contracts and things like that, is standards for T's and C's, right? So we talk about different purposes and stuff like that. We've been working together for a long time, and to me, the fact that it seems like we renegotiate basic terms and conditions, why? We've already worked with this, or at least pockets of us have done this many times before. So let's start with the thing that we agreed on last and delta from that, and have good reasons why we're going to do a delta from what we've already got agreement to do. Right? At some point we've already said, why are we spending a bunch of dollars starting from a clean sheet and coming together as opposed to take your standard T's and C's? I would say have a standard T's and C's with the going company, Raytheon, Norfolk, Lockheed, or GE. Let's start there. And then find reasons, if any, why you would delta from that on IP rights, on everything that you care about. Why would we start from scratch? As on the supply chain, I'll tell you what, no, we're starting from T's and C's. We've already negotiated with supplier X, Y, or Z. I'm not going to start from scratch, because I need them on contract for like 30 days, because I need to deliver you, because I need a firm fixed proposal, so I can give you guys some good information on price and cost. So just
All right, well, Stephen's ready. Well, Mr. Robinson hasn't stood up and hollered and screamed about our contracting methodology yet. I was waiting on that. Yeah, he's just yelling at Gunny. Okay. All right, okay, I can barely, you're going to have to stand up. I see you over here. Okay, Mike. There.
Yeah, Doug Ebersole,
Doug.
retired 37-year acquisition geek at Wright-Pat. So as I sit back and look at my relationship with industry over this 37 years, what comes to mind when we worked the best together was in crisis. And a lot of it was with Lockheed. So I was in the chair as the chief engineer on the Raptor on the Dateline crossing. You know, where those not familiar went over the Dateline, divide by zero, the avionics exploded, everything was lost in the jet. And luckily we got back to Hickam on the, you know, on the wings of the tankers. We turned an OFP in 10 days to protect that deployment to Guam. And I worked F-35, so I've got a lot of experiences of crises there. So, and it just comes to mind sitting in the audience here. You know, we should go back and take, you know, next time you have a crisis, you ought to actually have an after action, and maybe you guys do that. I mean, collaboratively between the program office and say, how did we make that happen? How did we turn an OFP in 10 days? Any thoughts on that?
So I don't want to comment on AFP, but you know, I think there's two elements to that. You know, the after actions tend to be, you know, with regards to what technical issue how to be here, which we all recognize, kind of have to go through that, but if you stop there, then you've only done about 30% of what you should do with the opportunity and that experience. So I think for both the industry side and the government side, in terms of the how did we recover and execute and get to success, where were into to meet the mission need? And then where were we able to expend costs with, perhaps reimbursement on the industry side, and what were the costs and what were the technical expertise and capabilities about various on the industry side? And where is it appropriate for those two sets of activities to occur, and then where is it not appropriate for those two sets of activities to occur? We can't always operate the crisis, even though we recognize we can deliver just amazing technical capability in a short period of time. But what are those set of conditions where we can bring some of those lessons to bear? I'm trying to stay general so I don't get specific. And then how do we move forward? I'm going back to the discussion earlier today where instead of asking for another AI to not execute these certain pieces of guidance, how do we have a smaller set of guidance that we only add in and need to add in for certain conditions? Because the opportunity for the situation that you brought up is for us to be able to better articulate where those conditions are.
Well, it was brilliant. We're trying to absorb it all. We're on it. Okay, Ms. Watern, I think's got a question over here. We'll get her a microphone here in a second, and then we got time for a few more.
Okay, Doug. So Doug made me think of something in the history books, but it's a little bit about empowerment, and certainly a lot of empowerment pushed down from the government side. But years ago, when this was Lockheed, when they did the 117 lot buys, it was 2 weeks in Building 14, signed, sealed, not delivered, but in and out. I happen to think that there was a lot of empowerment on the contractor side. How has that changed over the years?
So go ahead and start. So I think over time, again, we can all come up with specific examples of goodness, but over time we've layered bureaucracy in our organizations, and I think the government has as well. Right? So if you want an answer, which we can argue it's because of regulation, you can argue because we're only buying certain items once every 30 years, so we want to make sure everything's good. It's because there's been audits that have been unfavorable, so we've got to protect that. There's lots of reasons why, but I think that gets to the heart of speed. One of the things I've done specific in my organization over the last 12 months, we just removed a couple layers of organization and we reduced some of the staff. So we were able to accomplish the job, and lo and behold, we're moving constantly. Right? And I don't think there was any added risk. And in fact, from a recruiting retention standpoint, it has helped because more people are given more authority, more autonomy, so it's a more attractive place to work. And so, in answer to some of the questions, what can we do? I think we just got to delayer some of the organizations a bit. We didn't lose jobs. We have so many job openings. We just moved them from staff to
line. Okay.
From tail to tooth, whatever you want to call it, which again was a good move for them from a career standpoint. So the recommendation is we're just going to have to take the bold action to maybe just delayer a bit. The organization will speed up and take that capability for people that are highly smart, expert, and dedicated to the mission of the nation, and move them maybe on the program capability side and just lean out a bit on both sides. On the bureaucracy, we'd probably move faster. I don't think it would add more risk, but we'd be putting the emphasis where it needs to be.
Thank you, gentlemen. And so these last two panels have been very interesting, and I work in the sustainment world, and I routinely see, it seems like business, they need predictable profitability, predictable profits, and the government needs predictable costs and readiness. And we currently have a situation, I think everybody's pretty clear on, where industry is relying pretty heavily on sustainment dollars, and government is in a lot of ways trying to compete with industry organically to kind of save money and pull on capabilities, which causes a strain. So there's competition for the same stuff. So I had a question, and I wanted to kind of ask what people thought about this idea. It's kind of building on what Colonel White had said during the last panel, which was, you know, if we could all just be really clear up front on what the sustainment strategy was. What if government, and I'm interested in what industry thinks about this, of course, and both industry and government. What if government awarded multi-year sustainment contracts at the time of the acquisition award with like predictable off-ramps or buyouts in case, and obviously, you know, responsibilities and strategies, right? This is what we will do, this is what you will do, with predictable buyouts at certain time frames in case anybody wanted to change the deal or get out.
I'll do my best to try to respond to that. In preparing for LCID, I kind of stoked up my own ideas on some of the questions that were being asked. And along those lines, I think it's a consideration for product life cycle. And there's been some discussion over the last day or so on a lot of discussion on acquisition and, you know, what kind of sustainment strategy has been laid down during that acquisition strategy or systems. But I look at sustainment kind of three phases of the product life cycle. There's an introductory phase of that weapon system during which you're trying to assess how you're predicting sustainment measures up to your actual sustainment. There's a lot of learning that goes on that. Maybe that's a 5-year period or so. There's also a maturation period where that product is in baseline production. Let's say, you know, kind of reached its maximum run units over a year or whatever it is it's being produced. And I would call those kind of those golden years of sustainment. That's when you can really make hay on things that you learn during that introductory product life cycle, and you can start to chip away sustainment costs. And then quite honestly, there's the out of production phase, where you know, how do you treat the legacy phase? And every weapon system is different. We've heard some that are 7 years, which will make that out of production in the last 10 years. And so I don't necessarily disagree with that kind of pre-baked in offerings, but I would say they're fluid. And I got this note down, we talk about data, from an IT modernization perspective, I guess, doing licensing deals. The single most expensive time to acquire IP is in front of the program. That is, you've got all of the production in front of you, all of the sustainment in front of you. So that's where that IP has the most value. The cheapest time to buy is on that out of production time frame. It's on the back end, you can start to come down. And I think from a DoD perspective, that's all the parts of sustainment plan. Right? When we get out of production, you start to run into the mission source of supply. And so, yes, I agree with your thought process in terms of, you know, kind of pre-baking that in. I would say it'd be difficult something to have a conversation about, you know, how do you count that, you know, what that idea is like, what that offering looks like 30 years from now. And so maybe a transfer mechanism, or quite honestly, more likely that whole conversation about here's what the first 5 years of the product life cycle looks like, here's the capability that I'd like to capture in the mature years. And I'd like to start thinking about when this thing goes out of production, what the sustainment model looks like. That also.
One thing I'll add is in terms of, you know, the engine room, commercial best practices where they don't apply engines and apply support that at the time of apply. And we're trying to balance that as much as we can with the military role. And then the thing we want to think about is what's the right kind of contract to incentivize that the OEM to maintain the product, to keep the time on et cetera. So, depending on the way the offering is worded, it's not like a 5-year or 10-year contract. It's an offering for 2 years, or a 2-year contract. So I think what we need to think more about is what's the flexibility of that contract that can change with changing demand. The demand can be up or down, like one of my contracts was hit very hard by sequestration. We never really signed that contract because we did sequestration. All of a sudden the demand would fall off. So I think we need to figure out ways to structure the contracts that are good for the government and good for industry, such that we can work with some of those outside influences. But I guess I would stay away from off-ramps just to deal with that short time.
All right, anybody standing out there? We got one more. and then we're going to the speed round.
All right, yesterday was brought up, I believe it was from General Schmidt, that said that they were looking at contracts where they were having contractors come in, and those potential bidders were given a challenging scenario and presented an on-the-fly presentation when the government would not participate in questions, but the goal was to eliminate, those who were not capable. I'd like to, hear what your perspectives are, and if you've participated in one, and what would be your recommendations, thoughts going forward.
So when you have an acquisitional program where you're looking at, rapid application, and all these systems engineering, agile software development, some of those things that require, where you require a very unique skill that may not be readily available, something that could be that you can develop over years, I think that's a great model. Whether it's a code off, whether it's a big on MBSC product, that is a fantastic model. But the only caution is making sure you're applying the right tools to the right policy. So if you're asking a vendor to come in, or industry to come in, you have to get a particular skill set for a particular purpose, whether that's some technology of a procurement or acquisition effort, or whether that's a component of it. And you need to be able to assess whether the vendor to come in, or the department to come in and actually just don't apply that tool when it doesn't make sense. So it's straightforward, we're going to have a response.
All right, everybody seems to be nodding. Okay, so here we go. First person to the mic wins. You can only answer one question. Okay, so choose wisely. Total systems performance responsibility contracting. Why is that a bad idea or a good idea?
So go ahead. So it's a good idea, and especially if it's longer term, and we talked a bit about this, because we are incentivized if it's a longer term to invest a significant amount of money, thinking that there'll be a return, for that over time. So we'll invest in the weapon system, invest in it's accomplishing its mission, invest in the logistics technology that it will take to make sure that aircraft is ready and sustainable. And if there's a capability aspect to that, we'll invest and be invested in it over a long period of time.
All right.
That's a good negative. You don't have budget certainty, right? And your requirements change over time, and you'll want flexibility, as we talked about, where we're going to deploy, where the war's going to happen. So locking that down over time, up front, without the flexibility to change the requirements, change all that may not be the best for you. So something that's not complicated, or quite as complicated, is a support equipment, and something that maybe makes more sense. When you get to something that's mission critical for defending the nation, then that yin and yang between us wanting certainty and longer term, and you wanting flexibility in shorter term, is something that has to be worked through.
Okay, and working with my government counterpart, the personality trait that I most desire in my counterpart is?
I'd say to be communicative, right? To be open, honest, communicative around the challenges that they have. They have challenges that might not be readily apparent to myself as a business partner, right? And I'd like to be able to share the challenges that I have from an industry perspective, whether it's the scripts I'm working on internally, that could have an effect on what we're trying to get done. I'd like to make that same open rapport with my government counterparts as well, because that's how we get the capability in solution.
So if I'm a small business, why would I want to partner with you? Fastest answer done. All right, check. All right, firm fixed price development. How's this working for you?
There are some positives, but there are some absolute, I came through this disaster program for fixed price success with your customer. And particularly if you have right now a constitution done with respect to acceptance test procedure
Right.
or approval authority, where we've had severe misalignment, those programs have tended to perform very poorly and result in things like freedom.
Okay, there we go. International partners and programs. How do we make those work better for the company and for the nation?
I think in general, before, that we would encourage international partners to, especially with interest in different technology, where they want to bring something new, that's a way to get that technology into the U.S. government. Again, and say there's an aircraft upgrade that an international customer wants. That's a win-win for them and for the industry.
All right, well, on behalf of the entire crowd, I have to say thank you for participating in the panel. We have been poking you in the eye over the last hour and appreciate your ability to endure a little bit of good-natured fun. Look, I think we all realize that this is a partnership that requires, genuine candor and a focus on the line operator, a focus on solving real strategic and national problems and doing that well. And we know that all the government organizations out here, we rely very much on your organizations to deliver the solutions that we need and appreciate what you and your workforce do for our country. So thank you for participating. Thank you for what you bring to it. Let's give a round of applause for these guys. All right, Lynn is coming up to give you some instructions.